Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Lifting's Guide to Galactic History. This is actually going to be a bit of a strange one, and this one was full of not only distractions and slight bit of psychic attacks, but all strangeness and weirdness too. Very much like when we did the recording on Magnus and the Immortals. This one basically follows that same thread. At least in my opinion, this follows that same thread. This is going to be a bit of a weird one. I may put a bit of the recording we did last night about something about Germain, and it was orb responses and such. I may only use a fragment of that in this recording. I will have to review it once again and pick and choose what goes in. There are some other private things that are in there as well that I did not want in there, so it won't all remain in there. But
And do you want to hand me the deck?
Oh yes, and we
Yeah.
were working with a deck of cards last night.
And again, this is just for example. This is, again, we are not in any way, shape, or form making any judgment on anybody who created anything. It was something we noticed within the deck that we thought would be interesting to show you guys. It has nothing to do with any opinion we have about the person who created the deck. Let's make that clear up front. It was just something interesting within the deck that we wanted to point out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can do this in here in a little bit. I just want to make sure I have them.
Had all the ones that look similar, yeah.
So anyway, so you want me to kind of get started a little bit on this?
Yeah, first I will go into a portion of this. We were watching a show the other night where it spoke about Saint Germain, and you know that I have channeled Germain for several years now, gotten information from him, both scientific and spiritual, and galactic history information that's both scientific and spiritual. Well, this claim that people have made, that they believe that the Count Germain and somebody by the name of Jacques Saint Germain are one and the same person. They believe him to be more of a vampiric entity. And as we have said in galactic history, there was what we call the vampire virus that we have said Jesus contracted as well, or as Enlil got infected with, got transformed, and then turned back. He had gone into a quarantine or isolation. And there are several beings here on the earth that have also contracted this, that are in more of an earthly isolation. They can't leave the planet. And Germain, I know somebody's trying to pull this out of my head again as we were doing this. There's been a kind of a rough ride trying to get this information out, and I will show images of the people that I mean here in a moment.
So let me start a little bit further back, then that'll help you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that Chris and I are very interested in doing, and you guys will start to see a lot more of it in general, is what we consider this whole conversation on galactic history, how this whole expression got set up, what were the components of it, how, of course, it translates to affecting us throughout the lives we've all led, and how it affects us now. And in general, how does humanity come out of an expression that really was more set up to control humanity, and then how does humanity come out of it to express their own wills and desires and things like that. So it really is our opinion that, again, when you talk about the time that we're talking about as far as our existence in galactic histories, and you even go back right prior to when the darkness came in, or when they were setting up the expression, and you're talking millions and millions and millions of years ago. So how do you condense all that? Well, again, the goal is to pull out enough information that you can get a good enough gist, and if it feels like this could be a possibility, then the goal is from that point on, well, then how do I, because I may have believed in certain belief systems or believed in certain beings, or maybe I was very, very trusting. Maybe now I need to kind of assert my own sovereignty a little bit more and my own desires and not assume somebody else is completely and always benevolent, and I have to learn to assert myself, just like you want children, to grow up and be an independent adult. It's kind of the same thing, but we maybe didn't know all of the ins and outs and everything that were going on, so we didn't do it. And now it's time to start doing it. And so that's where we talk about, again, the collective consciousness, the collective drive. So there is an importance about galactic history. And how this was all set up, but obviously we cannot tell you every single component of millions of years. You get a synopsis version, hopefully enough to get the gist. Now, the one thing that we've always tried to say as well is it's really good to talk to many beings and get their perspective, because what you actually get is a perspective. Everyone's like, I want to know the truth. Well, what you're going to actually get is a person's perspective of what the truth was or what occurred or whatever. In general, if you want the truth of galactic history, complete and utter one version, guess what? It's going to come from the source of all things, who's then brought into themselves all of it and potentially can come out with one stream. You and I are never going to be able to do that. We're always going to have our perspective. And what we're finding out from beings we talk to is they have their perspective. And so what we've been trying to do is talk to a multitude of beings, as well as bring in remembrances of our own, being really old souls, as many of us are, and try to come up with something that is, let's just say, good enough to bring the gist of what occurred into the conversation, so that you can make decisions on how you want to conduct your life now, versus potentially some of the things in a bigger picture that could have been going on that we maybe didn't realize. So that is what you have to understand, that you're going to get perspective, even if it's your own remembrances, that's your perspective of what occurred. And you're going to have many, many, many perspectives that collide together to give some version of what was going on. So that's part of the reason why it takes us so long, because one of the things that when we first years ago began, we were still in our own mind thought that there was the truth. And because again, that's what we're taught now. Something's right or something's wrong, something's black or something's white. And now it's like, oh, it's not that way at all. And so now we try to collect a lot of different information from a lot of different places to come up with a more collective kind of conversation versus just the one truth. And so even in the conversation we're about to have today, the goal is to show some generalities of existence of some of these beings that have been around for a very, very, very long time. So even when you think about the old adage about the fall of the angels, let's say the wars in the heavens or whatever, we still do believe, as we've always believed, that was more literal, but probably had more to do with when you had what we called, again, dark Anunnaki, invading Anunnaki from one expression who didn't want to die out, come in and hit the Anunnakis that were actually here living in this universal situation. Again, it is our understanding that pretty much their headquarters was Maldek at the time, that ended up being destroyed. But again, the people that were here in this expression at that period of time, the Anunnaki, the ones that were here, who felt that this was their territory, this was their responsibility, this was for all the lives and different races that were around, and they had to fight off potentially something that was invading in. Now, we also said in Galactic History before, that's available to you guys, that there was a lot of mental manipulation before the physical force came in. And absolutely, we still believe that. But what you've always heard us talking about a lot of times is some personalities, some beings, and we've only talked about just a few who, you know, basically have made themselves known, or we've seen them before in history, they come back in history. So we're not only talking about our individual, and meaning ours, I mean you too, guys, our individual reincarnations, but we've talked about in general some beings who they don't really go through a reincarnation process. They just kind of come on the scene, come on the stage, you know, and for whatever reason, they are actually here either trying to make a particular type of energy movement. And again, I'm not going to say whether it was good or bad. I'm just saying make an energy movement one way or another. And we knew that those beings actually did exist. What we're also learning about now are more specifics to beings that, again, Anunnaki live a long time, okay? They live extremely millions of years long life. So there were actually Anunnaki that were here who, again, may have had, again, caught the infection, as Chris was saying. And if you caught the infection, they didn't want you out there, right, after a while, gain the technology, gain the whatever, to kind of keep you grounded, because they don't want this virus spilling over into other universes, other expressions, other anything. And so there are potentially people that were part of that same family. This, and I say family, think of an enormous family. It's really was a colony, huge colony of Anunnaki that were here, family members, cousins, you know, just like us. We have a huge family relations here, bloodlines. And just think about the fact if, you know, some of the, and we led really, really long lives, and some of them were infected and were kind of quarantined to being here. So you've got a couple of factors. You got beings that are potentially quarantined who take a really long time to age. And so because humans age and die and they don't, they have to constantly, after certain periods of time, reinvent themselves. They have to kind of go away and come back as a new person, or, you know what I mean, come back. And if you are driven to be someone who is going to move energy, again, could be good, bad, or just for your own good, just for other people's good, it doesn't matter. You got to find a way to reinvent yourself and ingrace yourself potentially into certain societies or whatever.
Or a world leader, or a king, or
right, anything like
to
that.
be like an advisor or a wizard or a court
exactly.
Scientist or something
so,
like that. Yeah.
You know, what we're saying is that our understanding is, yes, there are beings that are here that are very, very old. Very, very old. Again, they could have been original family members from the Anunnaki who were here before even the darkness came in, or lineage thereafter. And they aren't allowed to go anywhere. They have to hang out as you and I, living flesh on this earth. So you have that going on. That's one aspect, and that's one aspect we wanted to kind of bring up today. As well as understanding, then you also have the aspect of the chess move, since this expression was kind of from lightness to dark. You have the balance and counterbalance, let's say, of, you know, trying to maintain, I'm just going to use this example. You know, if you got these really prominent dark people that are here, well, where's the counterbalance of the really prominent light beings that are here to try and, again, have some sort of balance? Because humanity and all these other beings that have come in are coming in here to experience something, and you got these other players now that are in the picture, and the goal is, well, can we keep the apple cart kind of with enough good and enough good and enough bad that there's some sort of balance here for all of these others in the middle who are going to have this experience going on. So you've got all kinds of balls up in the air. And all we want to do is kind of do our best to explain some of these concepts. We may use an example of a being, a particular being known to people, but that's all we're doing. Because, what we're not saying is he's the only one or she's the only one. Or no, we're saying that this happened to an enormous group of people and some were susceptible and they're coming in and playing potentially different roles. It may be, like I said, balance, counterbalance, this, that, and the other. But that's kind of the concept that we're trying to cover right now, are beings that have never died and reincarnated, that have been here for an enormous amount of time, and the whys that they're potentially still here and not being able to move about freely. Right? Mm-hmm. So I hope that gives some perspective of the conversation.
Yes, and you can see that they are white hat, black hat, how we view heroes and villains in our own history and in current history with what's going on. You heard that infamous recording that I did on the Q program, for instance. And I feel this is more the ancient version of this, beings that were caught up in this chess game with each other, one keeping the other in check. But do I feel there were some outside of that were keeping the whole thing in check? Yes. Like Thomas, for instance. I feel, he has come up in history a couple times. A person in the court of Henry VIII, more than likely keeping the madman in check, as like a court advisor of some sort. There was, of course, you know him as Shakespeare. You also know him as St. Thomas. Also, you know him as Doubting Thomas as well, because what did he do? He tried to bring an analytical mindset to the whole Jesus story, which that also passes over to Sir Francis Bacon, which actually he invented the scientific method by which people are skeptical for, the opposing side. You have spiritualism and skepticism, another schism. You have another place where the bad guys created a for and against, where people are not unified. Oh, I'm skeptical of this. Oh, you're an idiot for being too skeptical. Oh, you're an idiot for being too religious. This is where this went. So you have these similarities of people in history, of some of the same people, either dark or light, or playing somewhere in between. You have Germain, which I've told you about. You have supposedly his master, which was by the name of the House of Rikosian, which was, I just researched it this morning, is a Hungarian family of rich aristocrats, and Germain was supposed to be part of that. He was known for fibbing a little bit, not necessarily fibbing, but exaggerating. He was known for saying he was over 500 years old and all this other stuff. And
this is stuff that anybody can go on and read.
Mm-hmm. If you look up Count of Saint Germain, it'll tell you his history. In fact, I will bring up his image right here. This is an example of, I would say that he is more of, he's just kind of hollow or neutral. It's kind of hard to explain with him. His energy is more of he's either whimsical or mystic, or it's more this dark persona wrapped around him in history, as like Jacques Saint Germain, the vampire of New Orleans, for instance. That there's it's either this or this. He's either white hat or black hat. It's either he's ingratiated himself as a mystical wizard, or he's a vampire. It's like there's no spot in between with him. This is what Jacques here looked like. And this is the famous picture from the late 1700s, before 100 years before he was Jacques Saint Germain in New Orleans. Supposedly this guy vanished without a trace after a while, and then reinvented himself as Jacques in New Orleans. But
But the question is, the one thing that we wanted to add to this conversation, which you necessarily, well, I'm sure you can find it, but it was something we picked up on with when we were were inspired last night to pull out a deck that we had, and it's kind of funny again how these things happen. This was not something we were looking for. It was something that we realized during a conversation that we were having with a being, and with this whole incident of vampirism and Jacques, who then people were saying, wow, he pretty much looked just like this count, but this count was so many years old. So what I want to show you on this, because the one thing that I told you guys is that Anunnakis age very slowly, okay? But they age. But they age slowly.
And they can deteriorate a little bit, especially the ones with the virus. Yeah.
So we didn't do this in the order that I'm about to do it now, but there's a point to me doing it this way. What we actually did is we pulled out these certain cards and we're like, this is just the same being, or by God, they're
the same family,
same something. And then through looking at it and having conversations, beings did come through here and basically said, you're right, it's the same one. Now, I did not realize at the time that the count, right, that was the count, Jermaine, that you just showed. I had no idea at that moment that you can read it right there where it says he's already claiming to be well over 500 years old, right? And I was like, wow, that kind of goes along then with our thoughts that this is the same person that's just shown up over and over and over again over the last 500 years. Now, what this deck had to deal with was ascended masters. And again, this is nothing to
not dumping on the creator of the cards, no.
On the creator of the cards or anyone else. What we're saying, or what we're trying to get people to think about, is could some of these ascended masters actually be the same person over time? And they've just, again, kind of reinvented and reinvented. They like playing the role of somebody goes to or somebody thinks about. They like that role. They don't mind being so many numbers of ascended masters because they're just playing out. I hate to say it, feels a little bit like really ego and self-importance. They're playing it out over and over and over again. We've always said you need to always discern whomever you are speaking to or whomever you are channeling. There is no guarantee that everyone is for your highest good. There is no guarantee that just because they have gotten this label that it means they are only benevolent. There should never, and this is really the key of all this, you should never make that assumption. You should never feel like you can't say, I only want you hanging around if your benevolence for my highest good. There will never be an unfair exchange of energies here. I don't mind having a conversation for you, but if you think somehow talking to me gives you consent to steal my energy, it does not. So part of some of this and what we've always talked about are the skills of us in growing is to learn how to assert yourself and your sovereignty. Many things that have happened over many years, there's this assumption now that has us not doing that. One of the assumptions is anything out there must be greater than me and must be benevolent. It is not true. But if you feel that way, you're not going to be asserting your rights. You're not going to be asserting these things. You're going to assume, of course, this is always and only going to be benevolent. And because you didn't assert yourself, you'll be taken advantage of. And that is an unfortunate truth that has been occurring. So there is no harm in saying the point of all this is to get you to assert yourself. The point of this is for you to go ahead and state, I will talk to you under the following conditions. And for you not to be in any sort of shame, blame, or guilt which some of them will try to make you feel shame, blame, or guilt for asserting your bottom line. But you should be asserting your bottom line, because you may find out they can't play with you anymore if you do, because somehow they've been doing something to you, or stealing energies, or doing something from you just because you're interacting with them, and they take that as consent, because you did not put a line in the sand that it is not consent. You've got to understand, guys, how some of this works. And so if anyone out there feels, how dare I say that I should be standing before Michael and saying, Michael, you can't take any energies from me. You have to be open and honest. And how dare I? I'm like, what is wrong with you? Michael would be the first one to say, do it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Jesus would be the first one to say, do it. Okay, so please, you don't want any blowback, because there's nothing that I am saying that, good beings wouldn't say, yes, do it. Show that you care about yourself. Show that you are a strong sovereign being. Yes, you're not offending anybody good by doing that, okay? So we're going to get back to the deck. So this was not in the order we discovered the cards, but it's in the order of what I feel is age, okay? So, and it ended up that in their existence, from when people thought they were around, their age order is the old order. So the oldest one happens to be the youngest looking one. I just find it amazing that the age thing, right? You agree with me? This is the order?
I believe this guy came first, though.
He was the teacher.
But he was later in history at the same time as him. So these two.
Okay, I guess I just assumed because he was the teacher.
Him and him are they're the same family.
Right, but they're not the same age.
They're the same person.
They're the same person, right?
Same person.
I guess when we looked it up in time, he was older.
Okay, the family of Rokosian is much, much older.
Okay.
And it's an extremely ancient.
That's what I think. That's why I thought that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know.
Family.
I'm thinking family and age.
Family and age.
Okay, forgive me if I'm a little bit wrong, but you'll get the point when you see it. So the first being that we're going to bring up from this deck, and I'm going to make sure you guys can see it. Okay. And we want you just in general to look what's going on. Now, what's interesting to me also is, what is he carrying? What is in this card? So do you remember, or I don't know if you want to read it, do you remember this reading about this person yesterday?
Yeah, let me see here. I will actually open it to the teacher card here. And just to point out, in Jermaine's history, he was also known for looking for the elixir of life, or the cup of life, which spread to other people.
So that's my point about
which
what
one
this
could
guy
say that's
is,
a vampiric virus. Yeah.
But what is this gentleman holding? He's holding a cup or a well of obviously something arising out. Some people could say, well, it's a hot fluid. Or it could be interpreted as energies coming out of there.
Mm-hmm. Or being taken and put in a vessel.
But I mean, so this is again, the older known of, let's call it ancient family.
Here it is. Maha Kohan Ragosi, who's also known as Master Rakosi, or the Divine Director, is regarded as a great spiritual teacher whose students include Saint Germain. He is very involved with world government leaders, intuitively guiding them toward peaceful resolutions. Call upon Mahakon Bergosi for help with esoteric learning, spiritual teaching, or the efforts towards world peace. Saint Germain is known for his geometric magic. He's known for his elixirs of life, which then go right back into Count Saint Germain and his obsession of the whole elixir of life.
Okay, so again, this is the older of the family. So that's the first thing, oldest family, okay? And that was why I put them first.
And also typical angel look, the pretty, yes, that is a man right there. You know, I misinterpreted this as well. That's like how we always say the Orions, the pretty boys, or the pretty looking people. That's what a typical angelic Orion would generally look like right there.
So again, Now, let's move on to the next person. Next, let's call it, in this deck, it was an ascended master. Many people recognize these beings as what they call an ascended master. The second one is
Hilarion, yeah, and that is healing. Okay.
And again, I'm just going to move this one and put this one right beside it so you can see which one looks a little bit younger.
Yeah.
Again, the eye colors are going to all change on this, just to let you know. But, you know, okay, so.
Okay, I'll bring this in. 44, page 44 here. All right, here we go. Hilarion. And Isaac kept making fun of this, saying how hilarious this was. So he was making a joke, but he was basically saying, you know, trying to get us to see that these were either the same family or the same person. So here is, I'm just going straight to the actual person, not the meaning of the card. Hilarion, also known as Saint Hilarion or Master Hilarion, was a 4th century Middle Easterner who became renowned for his successful healing work. Hilarion was beloved by both Christians and those who practiced the old religions. Much of his life and healing work was immortalized by St. Jerome's writings, which described Hilarion dealing by commanding earthbound spirit attachments to lead, basically doing what I do. That is essentially what this was also saying. Call upon Hilarion for any issue involving healing and clearing of energy. This is another form of magic Saint Germain is said to be able to do. Transmute different negative entities and change the flow of like timelines. That's another thing that Germain was said to do. But basically, by another form of it is getting rid of negative entities.
And I'm trying to show this. Okay, it's a little outline here. Look at what he's holding in his hand. Now, it's hard to see it because it's 2 teeth here, but think of this as intersecting triangles, okay? And you'll see this in a little bit different figure in here in a bit. Okay,
granted,
so this is Hilarion.
Granted, this is the whole Merkaba and sacred geometry magic is a form of magic either side can use, but Germain is very famous for using triangle and Merkaba type.
And the point
magic.
was,
yes.
So was Hilarion.
So is Hilarion.
Okay,
yes.
so it's in his. Okay, now to the next one. And I am going to put his card up first.
Right,
okay, and then I am going to put the card before it right next to it.
Do you see the similarities, everyone?
Like
see the
this
face?
could be a little bit younger version of this one.
All right, this one is Paul the Venetian. Paul the Venetian was the Italian Renaissance artist Paolo Caleri. His last name was later changed to Veronese to signify his birthplace of Verona. He moved to Venice, which is why he's now called the Venetian. During the city's golden era in the 1500s, where he painted religious murals and paintings, he was successfully able to defend himself against charges of blasphemy during the Inquisition for his artistic rendering of the Last Supper. You can call upon Paul the Venetian for help bring artistic expression and creativity. This kind of goes back to Thomas and Shakespeare. You know, he was involved in Italy mostly, but I'm just saying this seems to be members of the same family, also renditions of the same being as well. So,
okay,
yeah.
so, okay, what color robe does he have on?
Purple.
It's purple.
Purple.
What is he holding in his hand?
A purple mark.
No, well, yeah,
yeah.
A Merkaba, right?
Merkaba, yeah,
okay.
but there's a purple aura around it.
Okay,
yeah.
purple aura around it. Okay, so he's holding a Merkaba. He's wearing a purple robe. That was important for this reason.
And now, dun, 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 this is Germain himself, right here. Yeah, here, this is Germain himself right here.
Here's the one before him. And again, this was also before him in time. And wow, doesn't he look like he's a little teeny bit older version of this one?
Yeah, not aging very fast.
Not aging very fast at all, just a little.
Okay. Here is on Saint Germain. other than Count Saint Germain that I've told you, which they are the same person, even though they don't slightly look like it. Artistic renditions can be slightly different, like with statue carving, drawings, paintings, what have you. They can be a little different. Also, the person, say, had an injury or something, or their nose got broke or something like that, that's going to be in there as well in some other versions. This is now Saint Germain. Saint Germain isn't the Catholic saint, but a count from the French region called Saint Germain. He was known as the Wonder Man of Europe during his lifetime in the early 1700s. Saint Germain was renowned for his magical abilities to give gems and fountain of youth like elixirs to his many friends. That cup you saw in the last card,
The first
card, yes.
Which is this one.
Yes.
The elixir of life.
He was a virtuoso musician and linguist who was beloved by royalty and blue-collar workers alike. Saint Germain helps light workers who wish to work toward world peace and bring about integrity and honesty in other governmental systems. There's another card. One of the other cards was also about world peace and and bring about integrity and honesty in governmental systems. So you see the commonality thread here that is starting to form. What is also interesting, the one who called him the Wonder Man was actually Voltaire. And Voltaire was a very outspoken anti-church, anti-establishment type of person who essentially poked fun at the basically the count called him the Wonder Man, like he was sarcastic, saying, "Oh, he's the Wonder Man." It was sarcastically meant. It wasn't a literal thing.
You want to bring Voltaire up?
Yes,
So
and I find this very, very interesting because also the street we are living on. I see this as a synchronicity, folks. We are living on Voltaire. So let's see, where is the Voltaire sarcastically dubbed him the Wonder Man. All right.
Yes, if you just look at it.
Yep, and here we go. Here is Voltaire, everyone. And he was living at the same time. He was a harsh critic of Germain at the time. And let's see, was a French government writer, historian, philosopher, famous for his wit, his criticism of Christianity, especially the Roman Catholic Church, as well as his advocacy of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and separation of church and state. These are things that I've actually spoken about, that I've ranted about how these things have to be more criticized and looked at. He's a prolific writer and wrote in like small poems, novels, essays, historical and scientific works. I do the same thing. I believe this is an incarnation. No. This is possibly either a family member or someone that has been a guide and a galactic. And before we started this recording, Joanna actually put it out there that we wanted to hear from Voltaire himself in regards to this subject, and even Germain. I heard a voice come to me, and it's really hard to actually even talk about this subject without my head being all clouded. So this tells me this is part of my own history as well. I heard a voice of this person come through saying that we had summoned him, that he was more than happy to speak. And do I believe this is Voltaire? Yes. This is the kind of the face that I'm seeing. Like I said, paintings and drawings and statues are slightly different when people make them. It's either artist's opinion of how they think the person is looking, or it's the ability to draw them or carve them or what have you that makes it different. Shakespeare was the same way, where it was slightly different in different pictures and renditions. It's still the same, but it's just the way the artist interprets it. So I believe we can actually do this in more of a question-answer type of situation.
Instead of it, so you're no channeling, just a
No, no,
talk
no,
they
no. I
talk to
mean
you.
channeling, but bring him through the actually.
Oh, okay, you want to do that? That's fine with me.
Yes. Yes.
See how
And,
impromptu this is, guys?
mhm.
We just kind of go with the flow.
And
But
also,
I hope you find what you just saw interesting. Again, you probably can pull some of these same images up of these people. Again, we're not judging. We're not trying to make a judgment right now. We're trying to say it appears that this situation of beings, that some of these beings are actually here because they can't go anywhere. They have an infection. It has not been cleared yet. So they have to constantly reinvent themselves. They're in different states potentially of whether or not they're service to self, service to others, or a little of both, or whatever. Many of them could easily pass any sort of audit because they may not be being very genuine. In fact, the Count was very honest, saying he's been around a long time. No one believed him.
yeah, well, yeah.
But he was actually telling the truth.
Yeah, he
So,
was joking and telling the truth. Very much like
Yeah.
that interview that Obama had a while back when he was asked about aliens, and he put it in a joking way. Oh, yes, we have to say things like that. Then he did it in kind of a similar way.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
again, again, we're trying to help everyone move also a little bit from black or white, good or bad. What's important about galactic history is understanding the possibilities of how things really occurred and how they are affecting us now, so that you can actually bring some of these possibilities into your life, so that you will learn to bring in your own desires and your own wills by being your sovereign self and asserting your desires and wishes, not making assumptions that others have your best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm. And also the fact that, when Jermaine was around last night, I did ask if he accepted an audit from True Benevolent Source Creator. My usual, one of my usual ways of making sure the person's on the up and up. Well, he may not have been completely on the up and up, but an audit makes sure that he's being genuine, as what Joanna was saying. He was being genuine. It doesn't necessarily mean he was being nice. Just let me re-clarify.
Or
that.
service to others.
Or service to others.
I mean, it could.
He very well may have said on numerous occasions that he was out for himself, or that, oh, I'm 500 years old. Ha 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 ha. He was being serious, or being genuine to himself, so therefore he passed an audit by the Creator. So I found that very, very interesting that he slithered through just like that. And
many of his interactions with people, he is giving valid information.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things probably we would say Jermaine, if he were guilty of anything, it would be guilt of omission.
Yes, guilt of omission. Basically, okay, he's famous for doing his channelings in the Phoenix Journals. I'll use this as an example. All the equipment and all the scientific passages that are in there where he was the channeler. Do you see any safety standards in there? Do you see any warning signs, tags of any kind? No, and we pointed that part out before.
Yeah, a long time ago.
A long time ago. I pointed that out before. Well, his is more lying by omission. It is like he just didn't say everything. He just did not put it all in there. Therefore, he was still technically telling the truth, but he still left out a crucial thing, meaning, hey, warning, this could make you go blind if you use too much of it, et cetera, et cetera. He did not put that in there. So he is essentially, he's doing his routine by omitting verses by just putting blatant lies on things.
It's not out in your face deception. No,
it's not out in your face deception.
Right.
Like when I was speaking to him last night. Also, he didn't seem to really care that I was a little miffed that I found out what he actually was. That he omitted certain things. Like I didn't ask the right question. And he's one of those types too, where, oh, you just didn't ask me. Well, I didn't know to ask. That's how some of these government factions work. Oh, you didn't ask the right questions. Well, people don't know to ask that question. So that's kind of how he is as well. So at this point in time, we'll go straight to it. I even wrote a couple of poems this morning I don't have my notebook in here with me, but I can always put them in the description heading of the video when this is uploaded to Vimeo and Patreon. I can put them in there, which I will say one more thing before I bring Voltaire in. This also had to do with the scientific method. In the orb video we did last night with Jermaine, you'll hear me asking twice, to do this a couple of times. I make the orb go in the center of the screen a couple of times, repeating the scientific method. And that's the basis for the scientific method. Sir Francis Bacon is known for creating the scientific method and that repetitious process in order to prove a concept, how we know it as today. They basically saying, okay, let's do this one more time, like that. And then essentially, I feel he was part of that, either that same family tree or he was essentially Thomas. Some say he was Germain too. Some say he was associated with Shakespeare. Some say he was essentially associated with Germain. It's a mixed bag of explanations when it comes to him. Or was he related to royalty, or was he related to the Bacon family? There is this mystery surrounding Sir Francis Bacon. So this, I believe, was the influence also in me using the scientific method to present the orb video as well. So, and I believe that was basically Thomas's influences trying to keep the other in check, very much like he tried to keep Henry VIII in check as well. So I figured I would put that in there. Let me get another drink and I will go here. I know this is an impromptu video. We're working up all over the place, but it's been hell trying to actually get this out, just like it was with the Magnus Immortal video. So when it deals with these families, and I feel there might be a relation here to myself, I see some similarities in there as well. So let me see here. Whew. You are coming in with a fairly potent energy, Voltaire. Let's see. It's starting to heat up in here. It's starting. I'm feeling like this.
Like you're becoming flush. It is.
It's like this.
Like cheeks are turning red. Even mine are.
I just heard Isaac in the background going, "It's his hair." So it's that you saw that image with the curly hair. Oh, those wigs are pretty hot though. So let's see. Let's see. Isaac goes, "They look retarded." Okay, let's see. Now he's got a point there. So, okay, Voltaire. Oh my, what density are you? Are you going to need an intermediary to come through? All right. Okay, you can come through. And he has this almost like aristocratic accent, the way he's talking, he has this, he keeps using the word severance over and over again. He keeps referring to people as severance. I don't know what he means by that. So let me see. Maybe just his prose, but okay. Oh my God, you're a extremely high density. All right, you came in from a distance to do this. So I am who exactly I purport to be. Indeed, I did come in to actually, you would say, keep in check and watch certain entities and people and extrude those that would do harm, as you would say, unto others. I do things in my own artistic writing way. This is also one of the ways he has come through. And yes, is there a relation there? Yes, by cousinship, you can say. The same with dear Thomas, who was also with us in that century. The one you know of as Germain, he is you don't want to say manipulator, but at the same time, he serves his own self-interest. The reason I put out the fact that he was the Wonder Man of history is that he considered himself to be the top of the echelon, as you would say, at the time, rising to power very quickly, given his certain set of talents and abilities. Therefore, I deflated him a little bit with the Wonder Man comment, as a sarcastic comedian would usually. The reason I am identifying people as severance is this. It is a very difficult concept to explain, but I will break it down. I used this comment in that day to describe those that did not see certain information and knowledge. I was a very harsh critic of people, and a very harsh critic of the aristocrats more so. Say severance, I declare you severance, even though that means cutting loose. I also identified that as a means of actually judging the populace, meaning they had the lack of knowledge or a knowledge deficit. I was attempting to be the voice of the other half of the spectrum. You would say voice of reason, but no one would see this. The disappearance of the dear Count was by his own choice, you see. Things were getting too hot to handle, you would say. And he disappeared for a small amount of time while he regenerated himself after his dispersion of the elixir of life, which I'm not saying his genius was not a wondrous thing and that he has not done good since. But this viral contagion is something he is not willing to part of, very much like dear Shiva was in his past when he became infected with the same viral contagion. It was something that he wanted and that he wanted to own. Did he come from another time frame? One could say yes to that. But the man known as Saint Germain that I know, he is prone to tales of fanciful, as you would say, heroic missions and heroic interludes. Granted, he was a part of several, but he tends to over-exaggerate to make himself look more heroic. This is not necessarily a lie. He is just omitting certain details as to what happened as a result of some of his actions, let's just say. Even in the history in which I knew him to be. Omission could still be judged as a lie, but true benevolent source creator still passed his audit because he was not being disingenuous, he was being authentic. Authentic people can still be doing harm unto others. Authentic people in the history can still be doing harm unto others. My role in galactic history, further back, I am not from necessarily only the families that existed in your system, but my soul, as you would say, comes from much further out. Comes from a much greater expanse of energies and transformatively known individuals. You would know these family trees as the Khazat Thul. I am part of that history and was brought into this system. Was I changed for a short time? Yes. But I took that opportunity to wander the earth and also, you would say incarnate, but that is an inaccuracy because I have retained a lot of my true form, even now. Do the role of the Khazat Thul tend to be guards, tend to be keeping others in check that are doing evil unto others. Yes, sometimes. That and also clearing of energies and getting rid of negative entities. That is also true. But the family in which you have displayed in these cards is not that of that. They are indeed relation to, in some respects, both good Orion and bad Orion. You would see it as Tuathan, Pleiadian, and also negative spindly Orion. There are manipulations in the DNA there as such as well. The virus is proof of this. I know I am being vague, but my energy vibration is as such that if I came through with the full muster, let's just say, it would shatter glass and disrupt electronic devices. Our people are also being kept under check, as you would say, ever since the Lyran Wars, Orion Wars, and that of the harvesting of the Khazad-dûl homeworld. I myself have been on Earth and out there for quite some time. Am I in your system? Yes. Am I here with you now? Yes. Am I part of the overall creator, as are you all? I'm just saying there were agents, to put it bluntly, in your history that were doing good, and there were some that were not doing good. You could say Jermaine straddles the fence on each. You would say black hat, white hat, but that is an inaccuracy. It is more rather when they choose to do bad to someone or choose to do good to someone or deceive or omit. It was never that really completely black and white. That was a deception to divide. Angel, demon, same thing. Some of us are here to ensure that your world does not pass away, and nor do these darker agents that have the overage of the virus in them help it along towards the dark end of the spectrum. I can take questions now.
So I guess, part of us having this discussion, and I really do appreciate you coming in, was again, not to as much try to focus on an individual, not to just focus on Jermaine, or not just focus on you, Voltaire, or not to just, because there's a bigger message than focusing on an individual. And so we wanted to try to make sure that there were just certain concepts that were understood that would make you want to constantly discern, who am I speaking to? Is their agenda at this current present moment of speaking to them in alignment with mine for my highest good? Because here apparently is an example, if I heard you correctly, of someone who could at a given moment be very benevolent, but at a given moment be actually being a little malevolent right now. Or, I want to play the trickster. I want to have a laugh at your expense. It could have been all of the above. And what humans were mainly used to is completely categorizing somebody as they're always bad, or they're always good, or they're always. So, what I, want us to really understand is that, it really was mixed. My understanding of the virus, and probably this is what I guess, maybe we need to have a better understanding, is what would the virus do to an individual? Could it take a person who normally could be thought of as benevolent, could it actually alter their personality into malevolence?
Yes, you could say that. It has some genetic predispositions to lean towards the malevolent. However, there are and have been, because of Earth's magnetic and energy fields, different variations in this viral contagion. You two yourselves were speaking about some of these different variations earlier. Sometimes allergies to sunlight, sometimes allergies to different magnetic fields and different plant structures and plant contagions, or you would say just plants in general. Sometimes it's an allergy to nature. Sometimes it's an allergy to different bugs. Sometimes it is actually just a lust for blood, but yet the telltale fangs are not present. Sometimes it is fully transmutative and brings out the telltale fangs that vampires to possess. The Antiqua built something similar in some of the werewolf contagion. And sometimes these two combined into different shape-shifting entities. This is another version of the contagion. Your world is very unique, you see, in the fact that the nexus point and the dimensional doorways, gateways, and magnetic variations create so many variants of different viruses, contagions, people, and even elements of nature that it is hard to predict and hard to say what can happen and when. But the original design of the virus was a straightforward vampire as you know them to be in history, but the virus did adapt into different forms of a either weaker contagion or more fractalized contagion in all the methodologies in which I explained it.
So my curiosity again with this virus is when does it get to the point, because no offense, it's kind of like COVID, we've all been exposed. I'm gonna go with that. We're all been exposed, right? Would you agree with that? If you're here, you've been exposed because it's kind of just out there. So my question becomes, when does it get to the point and who decides someone is quarantined here?
The original strain always must be quarantined. That is the most virulent of all of them. The other variants are the ones like the Count or the Wonder Man had. That you could say was a part of the original variant, but he didn't necessarily have to be quarantined underground like your Jesus. But that particular strain still could not be allowed out into the galaxy because the Galactics, as you know us to be, do not want variants of vampires running around in their cosmos. So we quarantine them to Earth, knowing that the Earth energy fields and the Earth magnetic fields will eventually disperse the original virus contaminant as well as all of its variants. The one the Count had would be the one you know as the standard vampire virus, where it had to be passed on through fangs. The original could be not only passed on through fangs, but could be passed on through touch as well. This is why dear Jesus had to be quarantined and others had to be quarantined in Agartha. But the variant that the Count has, this is of a similar variant where by which he could spread it through a bite or he could spread it through blood transmissions, very much like a blood transmitted disease or virus would be. His is the most common variant amongst the vampire community. The other ones are just differential fractals of the same thing. Like I've said, the allergy to sunlight or the allergies to certain types of plants, food, garlic, for instance, or in your werewolf mythology, the wolf's bane, things of that nature.
Okay, and so beings that have contracted the virus, can eventually clear it?
Indeed, yes. Time will also clear some of these things you see. Your planet's on the verge of an evolution, as is your people. This can be changed with not only a simply grounded intention put into the benevolent Akesh, even though the information on the virus is there, but in time, the energy that exists within this solar system as well will burn that particular virus out and restore that particular body to a state of normalcy. Anybody with this currently, like current vampires, will notice that their skin is starting to change, even though they're in a dark environment. It is because your sun is different now. They cannot necessarily always come out in the daylight either, but sometimes they can, and they will notice that they are slowly turning back to a state of human or a state of the galactic version they were prior to the infection. Think of that as the audit in place or a reset, as it were.
Okay, so now I'm going to jump out on a limb because Chris doesn't even know what I'm about to say, but it is so coming to my head that that's when I feel like, be an idiot or not, I'm going to say it out loud and see where it goes. All right, so let's talk about the current virus, the coronavirus. Let's talk about the fact that Chris has channeled and has been told many times that the reason that the coronavirus is being allowed is that it is being allowed because it will help give protection against other viruses that are coming our way. I find that an interesting statement because it's finally coming to me, because this virus is not really acting like a virus. It's acting like it is something related to the blood and oxygenation. It's acting like it is something related to, altitude sickness. That's how many people are perceiving this, and it's got a lot of people. Some of the treatment that is the president was actually touting is actually malaria, which is actually a bloodborne issue as well. So I find it very interesting that here we are now talking about the ultimate of viruses. Here we are now talking about another virus that may be more similar acting to that than what you really think of as a virus, and that drugs are now being given for more altitude sickness. So I'm going on a limb. I'm going to say that, part of the immunity to this coronavirus has something to do with alleviating this other virus as well.
You can say that there is a variant of the original virus embedded in that coronavirus. None of these things were completely active in the beginning, you see. It was originally designed for a specific purpose, to lower people's immunity, which is your 5G. When that lowered, then this was able to be introduced. Granted, it was earlier than your cabal wanted. It was supposed to be more towards the end time of this year. They did not know how to react to this, because they knew eventually people would become immune to this. So they're trying to bloviate, as you would say, the fear tactic behind it. But is this related in some way to the vampiric virus? Indeed, it is related. It has a more cousinship to it. This will eventually make people immune, if they are not separated, that is, to the original, eventually in time, the original strain of that virus. Is there a benevolence behind some of this? Yes, there is. An inoculation, you would say. Is the inoculation your cabal wants to give you benevolent? Absolutely not. That is indeed more of a deathly thing than the coronavirus ever could be. Your people would adapt. It is actually out in the air, out in the open, as you know of, and it is in every living human being because it came down in your chemtrails. But it has other components that are also adding to it. You are only seeing part of the picture behind your coronavirus story. You're only seeing a small fragment of it. You are correct in your assertions. All of you have been. But there is a good side to this, to where this bloodborne part of it, that is, will end up not only blocking this vampire contagion, but will make the blood toxic to actual vampires. You see, like Dear Germain and other ones that I will not name here. They will eventually not be able to get the supply that they need. But by that time, since it has been slowly introduced, they will become as normal as they ever could be again. They will basically cure themselves by also trying to drink the blood of humans with this. It will seem as if they are getting sick, you see. But in time, it will degenerate the vampire within. Now, was this also designed by the dark Anunnaki, as you would say, and your draconian forces to instill fear? Indeed. But they are just as scared because they know this is backfiring on them, you see. They know this is backfiring on them because this is the time in which you are living in. Their plans and the timeline in which you are sitting in will not be adaptable to their agenda, but they still must play it out. They are basically bringing about their own demise with the very things they are attacking with, basically shooting themselves in the foot and in the head at the same time they are trying to shoot you with the same weapon. This is actually the analogy I wish to use with this. This particular contagion of yours will not have a long life in the form in which you see it in. It will adapt one more time, and it will be oblivious to a lot of your earthly sensors. Your cabal cannot keep up with this stratagem for very long. even though they may try to extend it 2 more times, but they won't be able to, because a revolution of that sort of which you were speaking of earlier a few days would not be completely applicable to them. Do they want martial law to control you? Most certainly. But would it be completely applicable? Not completely. So they have to remain in a state in between there, in between where people are co-creating martial law with them and also co-creating a world without them. They want the limbo more than they want the martial law and more than they want the forced vaccinations, you see. They still are trying to combine these things, but they are stuck in a limbo stage with this, as are their masters. They're stuck in a limbo stage of firing the gun and firing it at their own head. So therefore, humanity has the upper hand in this card game.
So obviously very interesting. So I still want to stick on the concept of the virus and they're letting it go, because I want to see if it ties into some other pieces that we weren't sure about that maybe now can be explained. So it's an interesting thing that if you feel that your cattle is getting ready to be stolen, or the cattle are going to escape to the next farm,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking about, this is where people would be talking about your ascension, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And but you're being utilized now as food. Okay, so what better way than to make the other cattlemen around them, and again, I'm not saying the other cattlemen are evil, I'm just saying other places not want you. So what better way to not want you than to give you an infection that could potentially then infect their cattle, and they don't want you, and they're going to want to still keep you quarantined because you're all infected. Mm-hmm. Which really also, I'm assuming, must have been the plan, because here you are dealing with beings with really bad pieces of the virus that you guys are quarantining. If they could infect really all of us and keep something going, wouldn't you guys quarantine all of us?
Yes, indeed. But as I said, a single person has this particular variant of the contagion in varying degrees, but in a dormant state. But in some, it becomes more virulent and more reactive. But you are correct. It is also a scare tactic to scare off the other experimenteurs, the other ones wishing to take their pound of flesh, let's just say. Like I said, it has backfired to such an extent that humanity will become and has become more sovereign than they ever have in your history. Even though there are some that are going too much along with the program, your energies currently will not always allow for that program for very much longer. I know you have heard this story before, but in this interim where you are all quarantined, and in this interim where you are transitioning out of this quarantine, no, there are beings out there that are actually not too pleased that you have been put in this situation, not necessarily just in a negative way by your cabal. That's also why they're not pleased, like your forest people and elementals. But there are other beings that did not want you to come near them with this particular contagion because of its immunizing effects on yourself and the way that they cannot conduct experiments on you. You see, you will become immune to their experimentation. This was another reason that Source Creator let this out, and a few other races out there that wanted to see you more sovereign. Let's just put it this way. There are races out there that wish to see you flourish and wish to show you the evils of the world. What better way than to put it in your face? Exactly like this. Even though there are people going along with the program and people not going along with the program, that is a form of division. Just know there is divine timing, as you would say, in all things. We are not saying people did not die from this, and we are not incompassionate to this. We are not deadened to this. But just know there is a good side to this. Your valiant Thor even took advantage of this good side, of which he did not expect either. Did not expect this to happen so quickly. But just know, by the middle of your year, this subject will start to become a memory, and they will try to plan for the next variant of things. Just know the next variant of things will not come as a surprise, because people are already expecting a next variant of things in such a smaller degree. Just know, do not co-create mass panic, mass death, mass none of that. We are just saying that they are planning for a next variant of things within the end of your current year of 2020. We are not saying that people won't see that as wrong, which it is to some extent, but it is actually building you towards more of a state of sovereignty, more than you've had in centuries.
And again, and I'm so glad you said you're not insensitive to the fact that this is real and that people are dying and passing and they are having illness. And yes, it is all real. And again, I think for me, I've been lucky, and I've said this before, I really have been lucky to see so many people trying to reach out to others. There's been sort of this realization occur that maybe we haven't paid attention to one another like we should have, that we really haven't shown caring, that we really haven't thought of our elders as much as we should have. So there's been a lot of outreach and true benevolent caring from one human to another to try and now make sure that is done, because the one thing that occurs, guys, is that our body dies. We're going to come in, this body's going to die, we're going to leave. It's only going to be people like this that ain't going anywhere for right now until they, either clear something or whatever. But we're going to all do that. So that's not new news. What the new news is obviously is what has been tried, what is now failing, and our own personal recognition that we need to be more loving and caring towards one another. And that's something that, you always are sad that it takes a tragedy for us to realize it, but in all honesty, it always seems to take a tragedy for us to realize it. So, with much love and caring to anyone out there and to anyone who's in fear over it, including the other races that we don't normally see on our frequency, because we've run into so many races. Now, I don't know if their fears or even, let's bring up the Sasquatch now, if they're needing to be away because they are susceptible to the illness, to the virus, they just want to protect themselves, or if they're just susceptible to all of our emotions. But there certainly have been races that have felt the need to back away at this time as a self-protection mechanism for them and their race. You would agree?
Yes, indeed. The thought forms that are coming from this are what they are mostly susceptible to, that, and mostly your 5G frequencies. The virus isn't really much of anything to them.
Okay.
Because they're on a particular frequency, but it's the denigrating frequencies, such as the fearful frequencies and that of your 5G, which that keep them away.
Okay. So again, like I've said before, this is affecting so many people, seen and unseen. The one interesting group that, Chris and I don't hear a lot from, because many of them have been very angry over what's happened to their race. So I'm just asking out of curiosity, are the mer people, how are they faring during this?
One could say that they have entered their own self-quarantine, but they have also been seen by many of your people, even recently, on your coasts. They are the ones that are most purportedly butthurt about your pollution and your atmospheric conditions. But they also must admit, from this happening, the earth itself is beginning to cleanse herself, and some of the garbage that is out there has begun to deteriorate at a much quicker rate because humans are not there putting it there. Granted, this was a program that was put into people instead of accessing greater technologies that could recycle, but I digress. Usually those that complain the loudest, such as the deer myrrh, are those that should help clean up the mess. And now they're having to watch as some of the mess is cleaning itself up and the Earth Mother is beginning to cleanse herself and audit herself, you see. They are actually assisting in actually picking up some of the garbage that has dropped into their kingdom at the bottom of the ocean. way down in the trenches. There are bits of garbage that are down there, like glass bottles and such, that are down there that they have been picking up for a while, but now they are actually more active in some respects and in more quarantine in some respects because they cannot handle the thought forms, but at the same time, they've seen an opportunity to come out and work as well. They are also clashing a little more with your cabal forces because the cabal has actually come out and your military has come out against them a little harsher because now people are not on the beaches seeing the underground wars and battles, you see, like you two have witnessed. That is what's going on. There are more drilling cases going on that people are thinking are mini earthquakes going on right now, with some battles going on underground with your military and other forces and other archontic forces and other alien forces. These are things that are going on right now. They're being more noticed because people are more home and quiet and in isolation. This is another reason this is happening, so that you can actually feel the environment around you is different. The noise of the traffic isn't always as much, even though there are people still out and about. It's been split down to a third. And you can actually know there's a distinct difference between your city noises and what is beneath your feet. This was another reason this happening. But back to the Mer people, they have split loyalties and they are a culture divided in their own right because they are judgmental in some cases towards humanity, but that also in some cases they are noticing that that judgment was misplaced and that the earth is showing them that they were wrong in completely judging humanity on the garbage issue. Granted, humanity does throw garbage everywhere and is to blame for at least half of the cases, but I digress. The earth is far more powerful than either group, human or Mer, actually imagined.
Well, thank you. So, I could keep talking for a long, long, long time, and but we try to have these in kind of bite-sized, understandable nuggets. So let's get back to letting you finish up with whatever you want to say, but also in regards, because the one thing Chris and I were talking about before we hit record was the interesting dynamic of trying to have some sort of balancing act between beings that are here that maybe service to self or whatever, but also beings that aren't necessarily stuck here but come in and may come in multiple times under different visages, in order to stimulate humanity's consciousness at a given time, put ideas out there at a given time. I find that setup, that dynamic, very, very interesting. How all of this interacts together. So, anything you want to say regarding that, or any message you want to give?
Yes, there have been beings throughout history that have stimulated information and the energetics. You would call these harmonics or codes or codexes that have been left here. But in these newly formed energies in these years that you are living now, just know that what you have experienced throughout your life, and these are recent humans that I'm speaking about, there are histories out there which you do not know about, that you are quickly learning about. You may feel that it is being jammed down your throat in some fashion, or that it is being jammed up somewhere else, but just know that the reason it is coming out in such a violent manner with the information is that the method by which was shaking the rug by the earth was also in a violent manner, shaking the information out so that you were confronted with your own inner demons, with your own misconceptions of history, your own misconceptions of what energy is, your own misconceptions of who you are. This is all being put out in the open. Both either fear or love are being put out in the open. Your false dualistic society is being put out in the open for you to see. Even my own transmission right now is being disrupted by those who do not wish me to speak. There are those beings still in circulation in multiple forms and amongst your crowds and amongst your people. There are also good beings amongst your people as well. Just know, whether you are skeptical on the alien issue or you are skeptical on the government conspiratorial issue. Just know that this information is indeed coming out and may be a shock to some of you. There's always going to be a little bit of shock, or there wouldn't be change. Just like with your coronavirus, there was a shock to your society and your economy, but there is a reason behind all things. We are not saying that there haven't been good people that have lost their businesses and lost what they held dear. But what do you really hold dear? What do you hold dear within the self, and what do you hold dear within society? Is it just your business? Is it the art in which you produce? Is it the information you wish to produce and are producing? Or is it just for the want of money, just to keep yourself afloat? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it for the greater good, or is it service to self? Or is it a combination of the two, which is perfectly fine? That particular stance actually is the most helpful, where you are aiding yourself as you are aiding others. That is the most beneficial of all of these, not split here or here, but the combination of the two, you see. This is also information they did not want out because there is a benefit to what is going on right now. There's a benefit that you are looking within and not necessarily needing to bow out of your own business, but maybe improve it in some fashion to where if something like this should ever happen again, or if you get into, say, a galactic trading situation in the not too distant future, that you know how to adapt your business with the coming times. Some of the ones that have left are either by people that could not handle the changing tides, or they were service to self primarily. This is what I have come in to say. Thank you. Boy, he has very green energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like green.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like leprechaun green. It's like, so it's very weird. Okay. Ugh. Yeah, and the whole time something's been pricking me on the back of the head, like right here. The whole time we were trying to get information out, there's like this constant right here.
Something trying to stop.
Yeah, this constant, like somebody sticking a needle right here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it feels like. Or like, say, if you get pins and needles in your arm or your leg and you feel like that tingle. Imagine if that were more intense and it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of interference that I was getting. I feel that's more of a directed like beam or like a voice to skull sort of thing. Military type of technology or satellite type of beam is kind of what that felt like, but it still felt like needles. That's what he meant by disrupting transmissions and disrupting him, is that. They did not want him to speak this. This is going to be on our Patreon, even though I will post it to the Facebook. You will still have to put in a password to view this. So I'll make sure to put that on the Facebook as well. So I believe we're good at the end of this episode. So this has been an episode of The Lifting's Guide to Galactic History. As scattered as this sounded, this is the way it came through today because of disruptions. So thank you everybody for watching.